Welcome to Connectedness, the podcast where we talk about the magic and the mess of being human together. I'm Fernanda, your host, and today we're diving into a topic that so many of you have asked me about: dating without games. You know the games I'm talking about: the waiting 3 hours to text back, pretending you're less interested than you are, or keeping three backup options on rotation just in case. Modern dating often feels like a chess match, except most of us didn't sign up to play. In this episode, we're going to unpack some mindset shifts that we can help make to help approach dating in a healthier way. I'll share stories from real people who have struggled with the pressure of swipe culture. We'll talk about what research says about generational differences and frustrations between men and women in the dating world, and I'll give you some encouragement for finding connections without the games. Number one, why does dating feel so hard today? Pew Research studies from 2020 and 2023 found that nearly half of US adults say dating has become harder in the past decade. The major reasons are technology, ghosting, unclear intentions, and the blurred line between casual and serious. Gen Z and millennials are also navigating online first dating, while Gen X and boomers often expect more traditional paths. This can lead to clashes when dating across age groups. Alex, 29, told me that he deleted the dating apps 5 times in 1 year because it felt like shopping for people and it made him question his self worth. Maria said she feels stuck between wanting to be pursued in an old school way, but also not wanting to play the passive, wait for him to ask role anymore. The games we play and why we do them. Some examples of games are delayed texting, breadcrumbing, ghosting, situationship limbo. We're going to talk about each of those. So, for delayed texting, this is the classic, like, I can't text back right away because I don't want to look desperate. It's basically pretending you're busier or cooler than you are. Ironically, the other person is usually staring at their phone doing the exact same thing. Breadcrumbing, when someone gives you just enough attention to keep you interested. A random, like, hey stranger, text, or liking your Instagram stories, or sending you a late night you up, but never actually following through with effort. Think of it like tossing crumbs on the floor instead of serving a whole meal. And finally, ghosting. When someone disappears out of nowhere. One day you're chatting, the next day, radio silence, no explanation, no closure. Ghosting hurts because it leaves you with a lot of unanswered questions and it makes you second guess yourself. And then there's situationship limbo. When you're acting like a couple, spending time together, being physically intimate, maybe even meeting friends, but the relationship has no clear definition. You don't know if you're exclusive, dating, or just hanging out. It can feel fun in the short term, but confusing and draining in the long term, if you want that kind of clarity. And it can feel fun in the short term, but confusing and draining in the long term if you want clarity. Okay, let's be real for a second. None of these games are actually fun. Like, who decided that delayed texting was sexy? I'm sitting here waiting 3 hours to hit send on a perfectly normal response. All I'm doing is creating anxiety for myself and the other person. It's not mystery, it's just unnecessary stress. And breadcrumbing, if you want me, just show up. Don't send me the occasional, hey, stranger, at 11 p.m., like you're feeding pigeons at the park. I deserve the whole meal, not just a crumb of your attention. Ghosting might be the worst of all, though, because ghosting isn't just avoiding an uncomfortable conversation, it's leaving the other person with zero closure. And we've all been there, replaying messages like, was it something I said about my favorite pizza topping? No, probably not. They just don't know how to handle it. And then there's the infamous situationship limbo. It's like being in relationship purgatory. You're doing all the couple things, but when someone asks, "So, what are you guys?" you suddenly turn into the world's worst improv actor. We're just seeing where it goes. So the translation is, no one wants to have the DTR talk, define the relationship talk. Here's the bottom line: these games don't make dating more exciting, they make it exhausting. They are rooted in fear, avoidance, and control, not connection. If you're listening to this, I know you want real connection, which means letting go of the games. The psychology behind these games, these behaviors, they come from fear of rejection, fear of vulnerability, or having a scarcity mindset. Like if you're thinking that if you show too much of yourself, they're gonna run. Jordan, who's 26, admits that he's ghosted people before, not because he didn't like them, but because he was overwhelmed and he didn't know how to say, "I'm not interested." Sarah, who's 41, tried to play the hard to get game, but she found it exhausting and inauthentic. And she eventually decided that being upfront about what she wanted saved her time and heartbreak. The fears behind these dating games and how we can overcome them. The first fear is fear of rejection and what that looks like. You hold back your feelings, you don't initiate, or you keep things casual so that you don't get hurt if they say no. This is perfectly human. Rejection literally activates the same pain centers in our brain as physical pain. No wonder it feels so intense. Now, how do you work through it? You reframe rejection as redirection. Their no doesn't mean you're unworthy, it just means that they're not your person. Practice small rejections. Try low stakes ask, like complimenting a stranger or striking up a conversation at a coffee shop, so that your brain learns that not every no is catastrophic. It's not a big deal. Remember that rejection is proof that you're putting yourself out there. It's a sign of courage, not failure. Number 2 is the fear of vulnerability and what it looks like. You play hard to get, you keep things surface level, you avoid defining the relationship. This is also very human. Vulnerability is literally handing someone the tools that could hurt you and hoping that they won't use them. It takes a lot of guts. Now, how do you work through that? You start small, you share one personal detail on a date, like a funny childhood story or a goal you're working on, and you notice how the person responds. Pay attention to reciprocity. If they meet your vulnerability with kindness, it builds trust. If they don't, that's information too. Shift your mindset. Vulnerability isn't weakness, it's a filter. It weeds out people who can't meet you where you are. Number 3 is scarcity mindset. And what that looks like? It looks like settling for someone who isn't aligned because, quote unquote, the good ones are rare, or playing games to keep someone hooked because you're afraid you're not going to meet anyone else. That is also human. Dating apps can trick us into feeling both abundance, like with so many profiles, and scarcity at the same time because there are so many dead ends. It creates panic. How do you work through this? You focus on the quality of connections rather than the numbers. One good date a month is worth more than 20 surface level swipes. Invest in your own life, your hobbies, your friendships, your purpose. When your life is full, you don't cling out of fear. You choose out of freedom. Affirm the truth. There are more people I can connect with. The right one does not require games. Here are some mindset shifts for healthy dating. Shift number 1, from scarcity to abundance. Instead of, "I have to hold on to this person no matter what," think, "There are many people out there I can connect with. The right one won't require me to contort myself. Shift number 2, from performance to presence. Dating isn't a job interview, it's two people discovering if they enjoy each other. When we show up to dates like they're job interviews, we tend to carry a mental resume of what we're looking for: height, career, religion, political alignment, hobbies, maybe even star signs. And while some values are non negotiable, for example, kindness, safety, life goals, research shows that most people's initial attraction isn't based on the things they put on paper. A study out of Northwestern University from 2008 found that people stated their ideal preference in a partner rarely matched who they were actually attracted to during a speed dating event. In other words, we think we know our type, but our hearts often disagree. And why this matters? Because a rigid checklist can stop you from noticing someone who could surprise you. When you're performing, meaning only evaluating whether they fit into your boxes, you're not truly present with the human in front of you. When you're out there dating, ask yourself, how do I feel when I'm with this person? Do they make me feel at ease and safe? Do they make me feel uncomfortable? Pay attention to your intuition and your body sensations when you're out in the dating world. Nicole, who's 35, swore she'd never date someone younger. She thought men in their late 20s weren't serious. But then she met Ethan, who's 29, at a volunteer event, and his emotional maturity surprised her. 2 years later, they are happily building a life together. Marcus, who's 40, thought his partner had to share all of his hobbies: cycling, hiking, craft beer. After years of dating outdoorsy women, he fell for Priya, 38, who hated hiking but who loved supporting his passions, and introduced him to her world of cooking and live theater. He realized that shared values mattered more than his identical interests. Reframe your mindset. Instead of asking, do they check every box? Try asking, how do I feel when I'm with them? Presence means noticing their curiosity, how they treat the waiter, whether you feel energized or drained. That's often a better predictor of long-term compatibility than whether they hit 8 out of 10 of your list. Keep your values non-negotiable, but let your preferences be flexible. That shift can often open doors to people who bring joy and growth you would have never expected. Shift number 3 is from games to clarity. It's okay to say, I'm enjoying this and I'd like to see where it goes. Kevin, who's 37, decided to stop pretending to be cool and detached on dates. On his third date with someone, he said, I really like spending time with you. I'd love to keep seeing you. She admitted that she'd been waiting for him to say it. Now they're 2 years in. I know there are a lot of dating frustrations right now. Gender imbalance in dating apps is one of them. Dating app research shows a major difference in how men and women use apps. Studies like those from OkCupid and Tinder consistently reveal that men swipe right far more often than women, around 60 to 70% of profiles, while women swipe right closer to 5 to 10%. Why? Because women tend to be more selective, prioritizing quality and safety, while men often cast a wider net in hopes of a match. The result? Frustration on both sides. Women get bombarded with matches and messages, many of which feel low effort, like things like hey or fire emojis. And that can make the process feel overwhelming and impersonal. Meanwhile, men face the opposite problem. They swipe endlessly and get very few matches back, leading to feelings of rejection and discouragement. Jason, who's 31, told me that he swiped right on hundreds of profiles in a week and got only 2 matches. Meanwhile, Lauren, who's 28, said she had to take breaks from apps because she got so many messages, it felt like a second job to sort through them. Same system, but completely different experience. The other frustration I hear from daters is that there appears to be some emotional labor imbalance. Who's doing the emotional work? A lot of women report that they feel responsible for keeping the emotional connection alive. They're often the ones asking deeper questions, steering conversations beyond surface level topics, and checking in on feelings. Men, on the other hand, often say they are exhausted by the expectation that they always have to initiate dates, plan outings, and pay the bill. So while both genders feel pressure, the type of pressure is different. Women sometimes feel like they're carrying the emotional load, whereas men often feel like they're carrying the financial and performative load. This imbalance can create resentment on both sides if it's not acknowledged. The healthiest connections usually happen when each person shares responsibility, emotionally, financially, and logistically. Melissa, 33, told me she was tired of being the therapist in her situationships. She wanted someone who could match her effort in emotional vulnerability. Meanwhile, Chris, who's 36, admitted that he felt like dating was just paying for expensive first interviews and that he rarely felt appreciated for putting in the effort. Another frustration can come from generational differences. Gen Z and younger millennials are growing up with far more openness to non traditional relationship structures. They're more likely to experiment with polyamory, open relationships, casual first approaches, or situationships. Many see it as exploring identity and freedom, while older generations, Gen X and Boomers, often interpret this fluidity as a fear of commitment or even a moral failing. They grew up in an era where the relationship escalator, dating, exclusivity, marriage, and kids, was the default, and deviations were rare. This generational mismatch can create misunderstandings. For a 24-year-old, a situationship might feel like a natural phase of exploration, whereas for a 45-year-old, it might feel like wasting time or avoiding commitment. Tanya, who's 32, tried dating someone 10 years older and realized that he expected a courtship model, like phone calls, set dinner dates, traditional roles, while she was used to more casual, text first, hangout style of dating. Neither was wrong, but they were playing from totally different playbooks. See, this is why dating feels like we're speaking different languages. Sometimes it's not just about personal preferences, it's about the pressures, expectations, and even cultural scripts that we've inherited. Understanding these dynamics can help us stop taking everything so personally and start having more honest conversations about what we each need. Here's some encouragement. If you are ready to date without the games, ask clear questions early, like, what are you looking for right now? Be upfront about your own intentions. Don't waste months trying to decode someone's behavior. If it feels like games, it probably is. Choose consistency over chemistry alone. Consistency is chemistry in the long run. Dating without games isn't about finding some secret hack. It's about giving yourself permission to show up as you are and expecting the same in return. If you're frustrated, you're not alone. Dating today comes with a lot of noise, but the heart of it is still the same. People want to connect. Thank you so much for joining me today on Connectedness. If this episode resonated with you, share it with a friend who's also navigating the dating world. And remember, the right connections don't require you to play games. They just require you to be you.